Welcome back to Nike TV and another episode of Death on a Dirt Road. Before we get into today's case, I want to just say that in the previous episode, I told you all that I would calm down on the death of a child cases. And I wish that I could, but when I was doing my analytics and going through all of the cases that I personally knew of, because it takes some brain power to remember all of the people that I dealt with in the Department of Corrections, I realized that most of my time, 9.5 years of it, was done at Camille Griffin Graham, the women's prison. And the other 6 months, the last 6 months, was done at Broad River, the men's institution. So I was at the female institution for most of my time, and it just goes to show you how many people have killed their children in the state of South Carolina, because every case that I think of, every person that I can go back recently and find some information on, it involves the death of a child. And that got me to thinking, it really put a damper on my spirits and trying to come up with cases, because I'm like, why is this happening so much? And today's case is no different. If you all have heard of Sarah Toney, she was in People magazine. Her daughter's name is Baby Grace. But before I get into the facts of that case, I do want to slap on a trigger warning, because this one is particularly heavy. So there's that. On November 5th, 2015, Sarah Toney showed up at the back door of a neighbor's house wearing soaking wet clothes. She claimed to have lost her baby in an adjacent creek. Once the neighbor called police, Sarah told them that she had entered the creek with her daughter and that she had lost her in the fast-moving water. She also claimed to have slipped several times and stated that she had just lost control. When officers asked her why she had taken her baby to the water in the first place, Sarah said that it was because she was trying to calm Grace, who was crying, and then she backtracked and said that she had taken her there to try to find God. Sadly, just 2 days later, Grace's body was found in the creek. According to a police report, Sarah Toney appeared to be in emotional distress and had exhibited behavior similar to methamphetamine use, like scratching. Soon after baby Grace's death, her father, Patrick Olberg, issued a statement stating that he was heartbroken and devastated over the loss of his daughter. "I feel pain and sadness that I never imagined existed," he stated. "I can only hope and pray that Grace will never be forgotten." Toxicology reports revealed the use of several drugs in Sarah Toney's system, including methamphetamines and opioids. Her lawyer, Eric Fox, told the court about her difficult life, including a family history of drug use, suicide, sexual abuse, and alcohol abuse. And he maintained that the problems in Sarah's family led to her own problems later on in life. Needless to say, baby Grace's death shocked the community of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Sarah Toney, who was 34 years old at the time, ultimately pleaded guilty to homicide by child abuse and was sentenced to 27 years in prison, with a minimum of 85% of her sentence before she is granted parole. South Carolina Circuit Judge Stephen John handed down the sentencing and stated that he believes Sarah Toney knew right from wrong when she took her daughter to the water that day, and stated that her own actions led to the death of a 5-month-old baby. Prosecutors urged the court to keep Sarah Toney behind bars for life. And during the hearing, Sarah Toney could be heard saying, "I miss her so much." The sentence of 27 years in prison with an 85% mandatory minimum was handed down, and Sarah Toney was ultimately carted off to prison. All right, well, so what did I think about Sarah Toney? In true Death on a Dirt Road fashion, I am going to tell you my thoughts on this particular inmate. And I will say that the photos that I've included thus far, I think, are a testament to the Sarah Toney that I met. She's a special case. When she first came, she was normal, if that exists. She didn't speak much. She didn't have a lot to say. I would say that she was in the nice category until either she stopped taking her meds or she started back with the drugs. Sarah became manic, if that's a good way to put it. She would come to my office and she would just talk. She was on my caseload at the time, and she would ramble so quickly, like you would have to take notes to kind of give her an answer to understand what she was saying. And she always had these wide eyes that never changed expression. It was the creepiest thing. Now, was she disrespectful? No, but I do remember her being bullied by another inmate, and she would always come and she would she would complain about that. She asked me to get her moved off that building to be put on Blue Ridge, which was the special needs building. I don't know if she thought that that was going to be a better fit for her, but she was bullied by another inmate who, funny enough, had also killed a child. And Sarah was just adamant that she did nothing to deserve what she was getting. But if you knew Sarah and if you had spent any amount of time with her, you would understand that people did not take kindly to the way that she turned out to be, and that's putting it mildly. I mean, again, I don't know if it was manic. I don't know if it was mania, if it was the drugs or her not taking her medication, because I know inmates sometimes cheek pills because they don't like how a specific drug makes them feel. But also, this was during the time when the epidemic of drugs broke out on the yard of Camille Graham. Now, that is not to say that drugs did not always exist there, but at this point, it had gotten horrible. This was like back in the day when you could come on the yard and find any drug you were looking for. And I know they started on those Suboxone strips, really heavy. Fentanyl had gotten there somehow. Heroin, you name it, it was there. And I do believe that Sarah might have reverted back to her own old ways and started partaking in some of that. And as a result, it triggered some of the mental health problems in her brain. Because when I say that this lady did a 180, she did a 180. I have never seen, actually, maybe a 360 is more accurate, because she went back to the way that she was prior to coming to prison, almost like the day that they found baby Grace, and it was like, it was a scary transformation to watch. I mean, I had seen a lot in the Department of Corrections. Sorry, guys, just a fruit fly around here somewhere. But anyway, I had seen a lot in the Department of Corrections thus far, and not a lot surprised me. But there are certain people that I kind of, again, took notice of, and Sarah was one of those people that made me keep my office door locked, because sometimes she would just burst in and come and tell you what she needed to tell you. And me, I'm a person who needs quiet to concentrate, and I just don't like my personal space being bombarded, and she had no real concept of personal space. And so my office was down the hallway. You would have to come out of the building, and well, when I say the building, I mean like the pod, because there are two sides to each building, and you come out of the unit and you walk down the hallway, and there was my office, and you could actually see into her part of the building from my office. And so I would see her peek out of that glass, and I knew, oh my gosh, Sarah is coming. So I would, and it wasn't to be funny, it was just that sometimes that type of stuff is best dealt with in a mental health setting. And although there was a mental health professional down the hall from me, they had to be seen by appointment. It's not like they could just walk in there and say, hey, I'm going through this, or I'm experiencing this. And a lot of times they masked it because they did not want to be associated with those types of things. And so they wouldn't tell the mental health professionals. They would come into the classification office, or they would go to the officer, and they would just ramble. And Sarah was that type of individual, and for that reason, I found it very difficult to deal with her. Not that, again, she was disrespectful, not that she was violent or intimidating in any way. It was just that mania is something that you have to see it in action to kind of know what I'm talking about. If you've ever dealt with someone who has something like bipolar mania or drug-induced mania, then you know that they're unpredictable, if that makes any sense. And that's how Sarah struck me. And so I would convince her to go, and sometimes go lay down, go take a nap, go do something constructive. Just don't wander around, because she was good for that as well. And also, I believe another part of it is the fact that she was being bullied by that particular inmate. And so she would do anything to kind of get off that building. But I couldn't really excuse that, because that other inmate worked all day. She didn't come back into the building until nightfall. But I don't know her trauma. I don't know the things that triggered her. These are just assumptions on my part. But I said all that to say that Sarah was just not one of those people that I found it easy to deal with. There were inmates that I could have conversations with for hours, who would come and have something really constructive to say, have something really insightful to say. That was not Sarah. And so when her thoughts stopped making sense, I stopped seeing her altogether, because I felt like at some point it was going to come to a head, and it was going to be something that was really out of my control. And so when it was time to do a review or something like that for her, she would ask to close the door. I would not close the door because my door locked automatically. And so I needed somebody to be able to get to me. And I had the keys on my hip. So nobody was going to be able to get to me unless they ran all the way to the front, to the control room, got a copy of my key, came back down. And by that time, who knows what would have happened. Again, I'm not projecting onto her. I'm not saying that she was capable of any of that. But what I am saying is that her behavior was unpredictable, and I was just not willing to take that chance. But those are my thoughts about Sarah. There's nothing else that I can really say without really speculating and being inaccurate. I find it disgusting what she did to that baby. To be in court and say that I miss her so much, to me, was just like a dismissal of what she had done. And not only that, before I forget about this part, I remember one particular day when she first came to prison, when I was first getting acquainted with her, and she came into my office and she had a photo album. And they had a photo album. They were only supposed to keep like 10 pictures in it, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was 10 photos. But anyway, hers was filled with photos of her daughter. And so I looked, and at this time I didn't know what she had done. And she was showing me, she just told me her baby passed away. And that they were blaming her for being the one to have killed her. So, I'm sitting up here, I'm feeling really, really bad for this woman. I'm like, oh my God, that is so horrible. Like, how can they sit there and say that you did this when you are totally a grieving mother? Y'all come to find out, read the story, got brushed up on what was done and said. And of course, you cannot believe everything that's put into the media. They're going to sensationalize a story for their own purposes, especially if it's high profile like this one. This one made People magazine. I don't think I've seen that since Susan Smith. But she had photos of the baby, and she was showing me like her first outfit. This is her first dress. This is that. Looking back on that gives me chills, because you have to be a sick person to do something like that without emotion, and to make it seem like this is something that just happened, not that you had a hand in it. And it kind of reminds me of Shaquan Dooley. If you watch that case, she did the same thing. She started talking about her children like they were still alive, like she had not murdered the two of them. And I'm told that Susan Smith does the same thing. She has photos of her children around her cell, and she speaks about them as though they are still alive, or that she didn't have a hand in it. And so when you see that type of mental illness on display, it kind of takes you aback, and it makes you thankful for the brain cells that you do have. So no matter what you go through, just understand that there is always a way out that does not involve permanently ending someone's life because you feel like you cannot deal. And if you're dealing with drug use, drug addiction, that type of thing, please seek help, because at the end of the day, we don't want to keep seeing these types of results. But I'm not a counselor, so I'm going to end this episode of Death on the Dirt Road here. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave me a like or a comment down below. Let me know what you thought of this episode, and I will definitely see you all in the next one. Peace. I want you right here.